In September of 1963, New Pittsburgh Courier published the article, "Are Puerto Ricans Cooperating Freedom Fight? Blacks Question Role of Spanish Americans in Social Revolution," to discuss how Puerto Ricans are benefiting from the painful demonstrations of Black people without they themselves contributing to the civil rights movement, and how this has negatively affected race relations in the diverse city of New York. With an accusing tone, the two Black writers formed the flawed argument that Puerto Ricans lack participation in this movement because they are ignorant of how skin color and race can influence the opportunities and resources one is allotted in the United States. The writers bring in the analysis of Dr. Melvin Truman and Dr. Arnold Feldman, who believe skin color is considerably less important in Puerto Rico than in many important areas of life, the United States. That is virtually of no significance whatsoever that the majority feel that people of darker color are not blocked from major opportunities by their color. What these researchers are insinuating is that in Puerto Rico, skin color and physical features are not factors that make one's life more difficult. After various readings on Spanish colonization, however, this is proven untrue, and the Puerto Ricans are not blind to it. Some even reject their African descent to prevent tainting themselves. But even if Puerto Ricans did not pay attention to skin color and origin, it would not change the fact that the United States of America is a racist and colorist place. Another instance in which the writers display biases and ignorance toward Puerto Ricans is at the beginning of the article with this statement: "It is an established fact that oil and water do not mix. Not so established is the extent to which the Negro and Puerto Rican populations of New York do not mix." On the surface, it would seem that the two minorities are as oil and water. Reading this makes me question what exactly the authors classified as Puerto Rican, because Spanish, Europeans, Indians, Negro slaves, French from Haiti, soldiers, adventurers, and pirates all combine to make the Puerto Rican bloodline a mixed one. This implies they are unaware that Puerto Ricans can also be Black. In their statements, are they classifying the Black Puerto Ricans as Black or as Puerto Rican? If they are classifying them as strictly Black, then the argument that Puerto Ricans are not contributing to the movement would be false. If they are classifying them as strictly Puerto Rican, then the initial claim that the two act as oil and water is negated, since one person can identify with both. The writers seemed oblivious to the fact that the Puerto Ricans, although granted citizenship rights, still appeared to be outsiders to the average white person, and were treated as such. In the Puerto Rican Diaspora, Historical Perspectives, Linda Delgado states, "Although the Jones Act made Puerto Ricans citizens, it did not free them from the stigma of alien, especially since most Americans did not differentiate one Hispanic group from another. Most Hispanic groups, with the exception of the Spanish, vary in appearance. Their skin tones range from pale to cinnamon brown to ebony black, and their features can resemble those of Native Americans, Europeans, Africans, and even Asians. This means the average white person could easily assume they were not one of them, and thus, due to their held ideology that white is superior. They not only exploited these people on their home island through colonization, but continue to do so to migrants through harsh working conditions and daily discrimination. So, if both minority groups were facing similar struggles, why were they not united? Judging by the fact that many Puerto Ricans rejected their African descent, it is not hard to assume that Puerto Ricans also believed the idea that white is better, and consequently regarded Blacks as less than them. This would explain why some Puerto Ricans were reluctant to help the Blacks with their movement. Rather than fighting to remove racism and colorism, they were perpetuating it to improve their own social standing. And statistically speaking, Puerto Ricans did tend to do better. Understandably, this led to resentment from Blacks towards Puerto Ricans, raising racial tensions. Linda Perez states, "Such reports clearly demonstrate two related problems with model minority rhetoric. It masks entrenched racism in city institutions by pitting minority groups against each other and focusing instead on dyadic instances of racism within these groups. The two should instead acknowledge they are fighting the same struggle and attempt to understand each other, acknowledging not only the overlapping disparities they face, but also the ones specific to each of their cultures." Unfortunately, this was and will continue to be difficult to accomplish due to the geographical segregation that prevents our exposure to people of different backgrounds. Our knowledge of each other will be limited to media portrayals, social stereotypes, and generalizations. It is up to all of us to continue to uncover what has been kept invisible for so many years.